Talking politics, cats and dogs. Talking politics, cats and dogs. Talking politics, cats and dogs. Cats and dogs.
So even though I'm Republican and we generally don't like trigger warnings, I'm going to start this video with a trigger warning that this whole proposal is for the purpose of psychological warfare. So it's disturbing on a lot of levels. In a perfect world, I would say what I'm proposing is pretty morally abhorrent. If you're not prepared to think about the kind of things that would win a war, don't watch this video. I see a lot of people saying that Palestinians are in a functional prison because of all the guard towers with guns, and it's inhumane that they can't shower or charge their phones, and those things do make life miserable. But they're fairly trivial when it comes to the reality of war. Now, there are people bringing up serious problems like there's no food, or the hospital is being bombed and civilians are getting killed, and whether this is defensible is part of a legitimate debate. But those points could be moot if we could just end this war quickly. There's people who are discussing what is happening, and then there are people that are using this for clout chasing and spreading stories like the decapitated babies were AI. And I'm not sure if they're trying to do that to get sympathy for Palestine or if it's just a trolling thing. Humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, which is going to be confiscated for weapons money, extend this conflict. We have a long-standing relationship with Israel, where we have been cooperatively doing military exercise, research and weapons development, at least according to state.gov's fact sheet about U.S. relations with Israel, which seems a pretty reliable source, especially with what you find out compared to the White House press secretary right now. The question is really what form our support of Israel will take. The nice way of saying this is that some former military people I know believe that our current recruiting efforts are not getting the type of people that will be equipped to handle combat, and a lot of our equipment is very old. However, I do think that we have more capacity for propaganda than we've ever had before. Most of the behemoth central media companies are US based, and the largest social media stars, such as Mr. Beast, Jake and Logan Paul, and Bella Poarch, are Americans. Deepfake technology has become the staple of movies, and AI technology is available to everyone who is on the internet. Historically, fighting the battles of hearts and minds through the use of propaganda has been our standard practice. That's why everyone loves Dr. Seuss. The fundamentalist nature that is integral to Hamas provides us with unique opportunities. The Palestinian people are among the few groups of the world that still perform honor killings, even though Islamic authorities have come out officially against the practice. It's also pretty universal in the Muslim world that being gay will lead to a very short life. And there's some famous incidents where Hamas dealt with people being gay by throwing them off of tall buildings. So, quite frankly, if we make the general population believe that Hamas is a bunch of guys that volunteered to die because it's a way of avoiding marriage to a woman, and we make all their married high-ranking members of Hamas believe their wives are sleeping around, we don't have to do any type of military operation at all, because the internal fighting will wipe Hamas off the face of the earth, and similar Islamic groups will not want to cross the United States. This might initially seem morally repugnant to Americans, much in the way that the atomic bomb was, but we have not had conflict with Japan since we dropped those bombs on them. I say this as someone with an East Asian Studies degree that focused on Japan, and I'm much more familiar with Japanese history and literature than the average Westerner. And I truly believe if we hadn't done something that drastic, we would never have peace with Japan. I say that because they have a deeply ingrained tradition that death is preferable to dishonor, and surrendering is dishonorable. Based on what I know about Middle Eastern culture, according to the research published by NIH, a factor in honor killings is the cultural norm of the family being prioritized over the individual. I also believe that the narrative of people who abhor homosexuality being closeted homosexuals themselves will seem organic coming from the American culture, even if this plan were to be made public. This narrative has been cemented into the cultural zeitgeist by people like Larry Craig, a Republican senator from Idaho, who was arrested for soliciting anonymous gay sex in an airport bathroom, despite the fact that while serving on the House Ethics Committee, he pushed for a harsher punishment for Representative Barney Frank for soliciting gay prostitutes. The director of Netroots Connect, Michael Rogers, wrote a whole political article detailing his career outing gay Republicans. So this type of hypocrisy is well documented in American politics. So I really think that the concept of religious people killing themselves in jihad to end their own homosexual desires sounds incredibly plausible to the American mind. Since the fundamentalist Muslim government is not going to send women to fight, jihad is an opportunity to be in an environment of young, virile men in their physical prime. We can also take advantage of the fact that Arabs tend to call everyone Habibi, and while more and more non-Arabs are familiar with this phrase, its literal translation of being a term of endearment will allow us to catch jihadist being gay because they're addressing each other roughly as, "Hey, baby." This is very similar to when Western media publicized two Russian athletes kissing as a protest against Putin's anti-gay laws, when in fact it was just a culturally normal thing to do. The sympathy for Palestine by groups who also align with LGBTQIA+ rights shows that Americans absolutely do not get the cultural norms are different in places other than America. I believe we can take advantage of fundamentalist Islamic tendencies to kill people who don't fit into society to eliminate Hamas by convincing them to kill each other. We can do this relatively cheaply by contracting people from the porn industry to switch from making deepfakes of Twitch streamers to deepfakes of both the direct leadership of Hamas and homosexual encounters and their wives and extramarital encounters. Even if people generally don't believe the deepfakes, there's a good chance they will still kill each other because it's known that some honor killings have taken place based off rumors and not the actions of the people being eliminated. I think very little work besides the actual production will need to be government sanctioned as long as prominent influencers spread the story. We know that the more people hear something repeated, the more plausible they will find it. And seeing Hamas leaders in compromising positions with their own eyes will divert Palestinian hate of the Jews to hatred of their immoral and hypocritical leadership. Hamas won most of the elections in 2005 because their rival parties, Fatah's leadership, admitted that the Fatah party was in desperate need of reform because of corruption and incompetence. My hope is that this pattern can repeat with Hamas, and also that we don't get more bloodthirsty leadership. Since Hamas leaders were elected by a majority and Palestinians have a history of honor killings, it seems unlikely that most of them will turn out to be the kind of moderate Muslims that would interpret the Quran as being against violence. I could be wrong, but I think the same Palestinians that have been claiming they're helpless victims of Hamas will suddenly find the strength to take back their government once they perceive them to be a disgrace to their standing in the Muslim world. It's also important to look at the benefits of the strategy. In America, we tend to support who we support and dismiss characters' attacks on them. It's unlikely that fundamentalist Islamic governments will ever be able to adopt this flexibility, so it will renew our position of dominance in all negotiation without additional military spending, weapons developments, or loss of civilian life. This will create opportunities for more moderate Muslims that have been historically killed off by jihadists to gain positions of authority, since they'll be unwilling to kill each other to gain religious purity, and this strategy won't work against them. Despite my moral qualms that this strategy centers around the United States forming a military relationship with the porn industry, I think the lives this will save and the conflicts that will be avoided make this the most ethical choice in a sea of choices that are only made in times of war. I hope everyone that watches this video will contact their representative to urge them to consider this as a possible path forward, or at least spread the rumor that Hamas is gay on their social media. To be frank, as I went through the process of making this video, it's begun to sound more and more plausible to me. So repetition really works. Thank you for your time and consideration.